Hello, and welcome to an essay on human nature and philosophy with Jimothy Trinket and Bartholomew. Just Bartholomew.
Hello, I am Bartholomew. Just Bartholomew.
And today, we've quite a story for you. It's thought-provoking, beautiful, and quite sad. Enjoy, dear listeners, as you embark on a beautiful journey. The story starts off in a dreary, small, unadorned bedroom with a mattress on the floor and sparse covering. And on that mattress lies a very sad man. He wakes up every day, living the same life over and over. It's an uneventful life of pure nothingness, or so he says. From what we can see, he lives like a single termite without his colony.
He wakes up, rolls over, tosses and turns. Once, twice, thrice. Then he sits up. He contemplates for what seems like an eternity. He thinks to himself, "Why must I have woken up?" in Mario voice. Truly, the absolute disgusting dreg of society. He gets up, then sits back down, then gets up once again, then sits back down. Unbeknownst to the average layman, he got up and, in fact, did not sit back down.
He walks to the bathroom, as you do, and takes a shit. For obvious reasons, I will not go into detail, but it was rather stinky. He wiped, not very well, and stood up. Took 2 steps, and unfortunately caught a glimpse of this paralyzing, grotesque, and absolutely horrid image in the mirror that stood before him.
He saw a face with distorted and deformed features, a face he hated. To his bones and his soul, a vehement fervor inside him only wished that he could tear it off. Truth be told, his features were not so horrid, so grotesque, or so deformed. He had young, boyish features, round ruddy cheeks, and deep-set eyes. Those eyes of his, however, may have been what made him so poor in feature to himself.
It was this melancholy moment he'd experienced every day prior and every day after. This small glimpse of sadness that left him feeling hopeless and worthless. Though, he remembered, he had an unfortunate contractual obligation to his 9-to-5 everyday job at Big Tech Co., the one thing he hated more than himself.
It was grey, soulless, and boring. Most of all, the Big Tech Co. standard office chairs hurt his back. Poor lumbar support should be added to the Geneva Convention, which, I might add, will be broken many times in this recording. Anyway, he couldn't see over his cubicle walls, but the incessant sound of mechanical razor keys tapping and rapping made sure that he could not deny the presence of his co-workers, equally chained to their corporate drudgery.
He looked over to catch but a glimpse of his co-workers, and, unexpectedly, there was no one. It was deprived of all humanity. All there was and all there is, a cassette player, to be at every single cubicle. It played the same repetitive sound of keys, clicking, tapping, and rapping. It was quite unsettling for the sad man. It gave chills down his spine. He remembered to himself. The man said to never look over the wall, to never go anywhere but where you are needed and where you are expected.
He was lost. He certainly did not have any sort of direction in his life. But now, what did he have? He sunk back down into his awful Geneva Convention breaking chair. For 2 hours, he sat in silence until he heard a voice. And it whispered, "What color is your Bugatti?" His head snapped up. His eyes were clearer than they had ever been before. What color was his Bugatti? He did not know. For gas prices and considerable inflation left him poor. If only we had an open oil pipeline.
He begins to stand with so much urgency and so much passion, not even thinking for a second that he was evading his contractual obligations to Big Tech Co. He thought to himself, "Where's my Bugatti?" in a slightly British accent. Then, at an instant, he realizes everything around him is not what it seems. He began to hallucinate. It seemed as if the ground was falling, and everything was discolored and out of its place. All of a sudden, he was outside. He didn't know how, but he was outside.
He saw his house, a single house in the middle of a field. One road to and from Big Tech Co. where he had been roaming, looking for his Bugatti all this time. Suddenly, he felt tired. Not uncommon for a scrawny 9-to-5 slave who just ran a 5K, practically unconscious. The feeling overtook him and pulled him headfirst into his door, which he had not opened. Ouch. He opened the door and walked inside. He sat down and stood up, and finally sat down and went to sleep. Good night, sad man. Rest while you can.
He woke up. He rolled around a couple times, sat up, and did the same thing he did every single day prior. He rubbed his weary eyes, which were so full of sadness. Self-loathing rushed through his head as he got up and looked at his hands. God, he hated his hands, calloused and pale. It was twisted and disfigured due to the countless hours he was forced to work for Big Techo.
He rolled his hand over, pressing F to inspect them. He saw signs of time imprinted deep into them, past the calluses, wrinkles, and aged sunspots. His body had lost the vigor of youth. Below 40, a glass cannon about to be invaded by Moonvale. What you don't know can't hurt you, dear listener. Hakuna Matata. His eyes scanned back and forth, eventually settling upon a small, almost indiscernible tattoo on his right wrist. A triangle with a disturbing eye. No, a pyramid with a familiar eye. A sharp pain assailed his cerebral gray whatchamacallit.
He immediately forgot what he had just experienced. Now, something odd happened. Something he had never heard before. A lullaby. A lullaby surfaced his mind, echoed through his soul, and reverbed through his ears. Donle vida vida. Donle vida vida. It echoed over and over. He was flustered. He began to break out into tears. He was scared. He was shaking. He had no idea what was happening. That was until he remembered. He remembered something he had never remembered before. Was it a mistake? Was it a false memory? Or was it a glitch in the Matrix?
He began to think and ponder, as Socrates once did, a new modern thinker to question his surroundings. He was alone. There was no other sign of a living person for miles, and just one road to and from his work. How did he get here? He knew how to breathe, to talk, work, and clearly rather accomplished in typing by virtue of his carpal tunnel syndrome. But where did he learn? How old was he? He rushed to the mirror. He saw a bald head that shone like the sun on the ocean. What was the ocean? He remembered a yacht and a name. Tate!
Who was this man, he thought? Oh my God. Might it be him? Might he be the man he's remembering? Might he be who thinks, who he is, who he isn't? Tate flustered his mind, along with memories and memories. Chess, woman, Bugattis, and sparkling water. They all ambushed his mind. It was euphoric, in a sense. He knew his next move, the Queen's Gambit. It was all in front of him, laid out oh so perfectly. It was him. Tate. He's Tate. But how? But why? What happened to him? What led him here?
The voice came back to him. Get bitches. Get money. Break into the Matrix. That's it. The Matrix. He knew what had to be done. He kicked down his front door with just his pinky toe. It was broken, but he did not care. He pressed onward to see a shiny, glossy black Bugatti, waiting just for him.
But it wasn't there. He walked out, and he looked again and again. There's such a chill running down his spine as he realizes it's not there. Is it real? Is anything real, he asks. Then, at an instant, a sense of fear overcame him. He felt as if his consciousness was being pulled away by someone or something. He saw blackish figures running towards him. The sky turned blood red, with what it sounded like distant screams coming from above. He thought he was done. He thought his existence was no longer. He thought it was over.
It overcame him. A sense of calmness, a sense of purity, a sense of happiness. This was the first time he had ever experienced this emotion. He was sure of it. He was happy. My oh my. He was fucking happy. Tears were running down his face as he was smiling. It was blissful. It was truly what he had always wanted. He did it. He had no idea how. He was no longer Tate. He was no longer a sad man. The sad man was, in a word, happy. The sad man was a happy man.